So, I would never classify myself as a major Turtles fan, but I am still a fan of them. I grew up watching the 2003 cartoon. Even then, I never watched every season, but I still have fond memories of it, if my 2-minute video didn't already explain that. God, that is definitely a bad early video. I've seen the 2007 TMNT film, which was a film. I've also wasted money on seeing the Bay films, but when it comes to other iterations, I haven't really watched them. Sure, I've seen clips of the 80s show, clips of the 90s movies, some clips of those weird live-action shows, and clips from the 2012 series, and clips from Rise of TMNT, but I've never watched them in full. I do own some of the IDW comics, as well as a reprint of the very first Turtles comic, though. When it comes to games, I usually played games related to the 2003 series, but I was aware of other games as well. So, for personal experience, I played the first PS2 Ninja Turtles game for the 2003 universe, the 2003-based GBA game, and the arcade version of Turtles in Time. So while I do still like the Turtles, I wouldn't call myself a mega fan. However, this didn't stop me from being incredibly excited for the announcement of Platinum Games making a Ninja Turtles game. The potential for a crazy and well-playing Ninja Turtles game seemed like it could be incredible. Well, as a 25-minute long unscripted video I did as anything to go by, I found it to be meh. I voiced that not long after I played the game, so it was how I felt right off the top of my head, so it was unfocused and I felt torn. However, I want to go a little more in-depth with how I felt about this game, like 5 years later. And if the title's anything to go by, it's problematic, but I still like it. So yeah, obviously this game has a myriad of problems. The problems kind of go down to the core, so trying to think of ways to improve the game without changing much is almost impossible. Like, the mission-based structure of this game doesn't work, and I have to wonder who decided on that idea. The basic gist of each level is to do various tasks that will help you locate the boss. To do that, you have to complete a list of various types of missions. You have basic things like defeat all enemies, or finding and defeating enemies really fast, or that's really it for the decent ones. Then you have things like hacking intel servers, disarming bombs, carrying gold bars around, and rolling on balls. Yeah, because when I think of Ninja Turtles, I definitely think of shit like that. I get it varies gameplay, so the player's not just doing the same thing over and over, but if you focus on the strength of a game, then people won't care. Like, DMC5 is only combat with the most minimal of platforming and puzzle-based challenges, and nobody complains about the lack of variety in that. If you have your strong points perfected, nobody will really care as long as the base game is fun. The way the game changes level styles is also a problem. You either have open areas to run around in or linear levels. Believe it or not, I prefer the more hub-like areas rather than the linear ones. Even though the linear levels have more straightforward missions and would make the most sense in a beat-em-up game like this, the core combat not being great is what hinders that. I'll get into the combat a bit later, but I feel like there was a better way to handle this idea. While there are positives to the big areas, which I will also cover later, they are also flawed. So for the linear levels, while one or two of them are at least cool looking, you're mostly going through the same fucking sewer level over and over. I get that sewer levels are kind of a must for TMNT games, but just like almost every other sewer level in gaming history, it isn't fun. The big areas are also uninspired though. You really only have two of them, and the only changes being some environmental ones. You want the city, or the city on fire? You want skyscrapers, or skyscrapers in a storm? Vary up the locations, please! I get that this is a game that was made afterwards, and probably had to learn from the mistakes of this game to do what it did well, but Astral Chain has a fantastic mix of open areas and linear ones. You can explore around and do missions, or you can head to the main mission, which will play to the strengths of the game. Even when you revisit areas, there are new parts to these levels added, so you're seeing new things, not just the same level, but slightly different. Something like that would have worked way better for this game, but that's not what we got. The story in this game is kind of simple and bland. The story being simple isn't a bad thing in general, but it feels like a lot of wasted potential by being so generic. Shredder and Krang team up to defeat the Turtles and take over the world. The Turtles try to stop them. That's it. Now, a story this simple is good for any Turtles fan to just jump in and enjoy without dealing with favoritism from a certain generation or complex plot elements. It's nice and safe for all to enjoy. However, making it more unique might have made it more memorable and could easily vary up level variation in set pieces. A good amount of Platinum games end up in space, and the Turtles have been in space before, so put 2 and 2 together. There are so many diverse characters and mutants they could have used and storylines to take from, but they never take advantage of that. Hell, since they're going with the IDW designs for the Turtles, why not add some IDW original characters like Hob or Alopex, just to make the game stand out more? If you don't want to make some grand story for the Turtles, that's fine, but playing completely safe, not doing anything unique makes it forgettable. There are more story issues, but this isn't a story breakdown, so let's move on. Almost every negative about the game can be forgiven if the combat was good. It's not the worst thing ever, and in some cases I'd even argue it's the best combat system in any TMNT game, but that doesn't mean it's good. It's very weak. You have a weak attack, a strong attack, a jump attack, and stupidly good defense options. That's kind of it. No delayed attacks, no charge attacks, nothing like that. Your combo changes are activated by using the analog stick and pointing in a certain direction while attacking. Like the combat in the Naruto Storm games. Wow, that sounds pathetic. There is still combo potential as you can still juggle and you can switch between characters on the fly, but it is so weak. You aren't going to see any combo mads from this game. The real major part of the combat system is the special attacks and abilities that you can equip to the Turtles. There is actually a lot of customization when it comes to these special moves. Each turtle can have up to 4 special moves, and they vary from things like stat boosts, healing moves, the ability to combine your attacks with other turtles, screen clears, etc. It's not a bad idea, but it ends up falling flat. I covered this a little bit more in my Travis Strikes Again review, but it sucks when a major part of your gameplay comes down to waiting for your big moves to charge up. The special moves are on a cooldown, so if your combos aren't doing much damage to enemies or bosses, most of the game comes down to using a special move and running around till it recharges, using it again, so on and so forth. I'd rather have a great combat system with one rechargeable special move than a meh combat system with many cool special moves that overshadow your main gameplay so much that you waste time waiting for them to be used again. So, the combat for this game leaves a lot to be desired. And for anyone saying that this is a children's game and that it doesn't need complex combo systems, well, allow me to explain why you're wrong. For one thing, it's rated T, so, not for kids. But, okay, plenty of kids get away with playing M games anyway, since their parents are dumb and can't see the giant letter on the box, so I guess that's not a good excuse. So how about this? There's absolutely no reason to not have a complex combo system, since kids might just mash anyway, and still get through the game and enjoy it just the same. Kids can mash, and still have fun, and for the teens and adults who want something more intricate, they can have that too. You want a good example of this? Transformers Devastation. While not Platinum's best combat system, Devastation still features intricate combos and deep mechanics, and yet it is still technically a kid's property that you can just mash through and still enjoy. So it stands to reason that they could just do that again. That's the mark of good gameplay. Basic mechanics easy enough for all to jump in to enjoy, but dig deeper and you'll find more complex techniques for those who want more from their games. And for anyone saying that making 4 completely unique characters with tons upon tons of moves would be very difficult and therefore it makes sense they stay simple, for one thing, it's not like action games haven't had multiple unique characters that are playable before. But for the sake of argument, let's say that the time and budget for this game isn't as big as those games. Think of the Turtles more like alternate weapons than full-blown individual characters instead. Even if you are playing just one character, they may have multiple weapons to use, and each has their own unique playstyle, helping to keep combat fresh and differentiate one weapon from another. The Turtles could have each been an individual weapon in order to make development easier. Instead, they're the same character with minor differences. You want the average sword user? How about the stronger but only slightly slower Sai user? How about kinda slow but long reach staff user? Maybe the fast and multi-hitting but weak nunchuck user? Other than those surface level differences, they don't feel that much different to play, which again makes things easy for pick up and play, but bad for fun gameplay. Nothing really makes them stand out, and since most special moves can be equipped to any turtle, There's no reason to switch between the turtles other than personal preference instead of making combat more intricate. So, combat could have been handled way better, and it sucks that it's this weak. Another bit of gameplay I want to talk about is the stealth. Namely, how fucking bare bones and pretty much non-existent it is. Stealth has never been a huge thing in TMNT games, but some games have implemented some kind of stealth aspect since, they're ninjas. There is a stealth mechanic in this game. Yes, singular. How this works is, if an enemy doesn't see you and you attack them from behind, they are instantly killed. That's it. Now, I am not at all asking for deep stealth gameplay in this, and I applaud them for having something. But I feel like if you're going to implement something like this, you should try to refine it a bit. Don't make it Metal Gear Mutants, but even something close to Rising stealth would have been better. But yeah, it sucks. One of the major problems with this game that is unanimously disliked is how the boss fights were handled. So the bosses in this game don't work like other action games, which, if handled well, shouldn't be an issue. It wasn't handled well and it was an issue. It works more like a raid boss in an MMO than what you'd expect from an action game. So I don't really play traditional MMORPGs, but basically a raid boss is a boss that you and a shit ton of teammates team up to defeat. These bosses usually have a lot of health to balance out with the amount of players attacking it. It makes sense for a massive online game, but take that idea, change little about it for a change in genre, and implement none of the fundamentals of good boss design, and you get the boss fights in this game. I have a better example of how to do this well for a non-MMO action game that I can use, but I'll get into that in a bit. Bosses in this game have way more health than they should, meaning that even if a fight is easy, it takes a long time to beat. Also, the movesets of the bosses do affect a large area, which makes sense, but they kind of just come out at random. Like, I cannot for the life of me remember the moves of these things, and only remember after looking at the footage. That's how bad it is. So, boss fights usually come down to just attacking a boss over and over and spamming your special moves and dodging when a boss attacks. Now, while you can just attack over and over again in normal action game boss fights as well, learning the game helps to make the fight more fun, and helps to make the player better at the game and understand the mechanics better. Bosses are supposed to be a teaching tool, a test of your knowledge of the game, and major spectacles that, if done right, leave a great impression on the player. None of that is here. Just attack over and over and dodge once in a while. Only higher difficulties require you to learn the boss's movesets, but that's only because of the artificial difficulty of harder modes, like less health and defense, while bosses get even bigger health and hit harder, and not because they are fun bosses to learn and get better at. Plenty of 4-player games might end up having boss fights that just seem like you can just spam attacks over and over and win easily, but good games will work around this to still have fun boss fights. You want to know an excellent way of doing a boss fight, like what the game was trying to go for, but working well? Monster Hunter. See? Told you I had a better example. The bosses in these games work similar to raid bosses, in that a team of people get together to defeat a boss. Where this works better is that the game is built around this. Sure, you can just mindlessly attack the boss, but you'll keep dying over and over and you won't get far. You have to actually learn the patterns of the bosses and counterattack accordingly. And the bosses usually have clear patterns to learn. Bosses also adjust to the amount of players on the field and attack based on distance, and will also turn from target to target. It feels like a real boss fight, and your reward for learning the bosses and actually playing the game is the chance to stun the boss, wherein then you can just go all out for a short period of time. This is how you can make an action game raid boss while not losing what makes a boss fight. You know this also works well when the boss fights are still fun playing solo as well. None of that is in this game. You don't have any reason to do any of that, and the bosses in this game are actually one of the weakest parts of the game, with the only good thing about the bosses that make them somewhat memorable is the selection of characters they've chosen. There are secret bosses in this game, which does heighten replayability and allows you to change things up and learn boss moves in order to deal with two at once. The main problem is that most secret bosses are just a boss from one stage implanted into your current boss fight, so not really a secret fight. Plus, the requirements to get these bosses to show up are very vague. There is one good thing about the secret bosses, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, the bosses are actually not the best part, which is a damn shame. So one thing that does hamper the quality of this game is most likely from the publisher, Activision. Activision is known to meddle in the development of games that they're publishing. While nothing official has come out, I have no doubt that Activision placed some major restrictions on what Platinum can or can't do, and tried to play it safe and not get ambitious, as well as having a short development time and small budget probably didn't help. It's more financially secure to do the least amount of work possible and be as appealing to everyone as opposed to putting tons of time and money and making something ambitious, especially with an IP that isn't your own. I get it, but it's still dumb. I do believe that they are not fully to blame though. Just mostly. I have no doubt that Devastation also had strong limitations, yet that game turned out to be fun and surprisingly good. So even with these limitations, TMNT just didn't capitalize on its potential and didn't find creative workarounds to the restrictions. So yeah, most of the problems could be because of Activision, but Platinum still takes some of the blame. So, what do I like about it? For one thing, I love the art style. While I don't think it'll age as well as some other cel-shaded games, it looks great and does have a unique look to it that makes it easily identifiable. Barring Splinter, the character designs look great and the animations are really good. Like, the quality of the gameplay animations and cutscene animations are way better than they should be. Well, most cutscenes. Some of the animations in some cutscenes are kind of stiff for some reason. I also love how mobile the turtles are in this game. Since most TMNT games are very simple when it comes to platforming, the jump animations are just basic jumps, but since the areas are bigger in this game, they can do things like climb almost any building, glide down using a parachute, and grind on rails in 2 different ways. Even the basic jump and double jump looks good, except when you're doing a double jump and take a while to land. Then your character looks a bit weird. That is one positive thing about the more open areas. They allow you to do things like this, and it can make for a fun platforming playground. So even if the open area level design is weak, being open allows for fun movement options. Even if the story is simple, the tone is still pure Turtles and it gives it a fun feel. The Turtles take seriously what they need to, but still have fun and never act out of character. When they make references or have little one-liners, it can be enjoyable to see and hear. It's genuinely charming. The game can have little bits of love here and there, showing some genuine appreciation for the brand. If you stay idle for a while or just do it on command, you can make the turtles dance. There is absolutely no reason to have this in the game, and that's why I love it. One thing that makes it unique is that since it's a Japanese developed game and not a Western developed game, it is insanely over the top, which is amazing. The combat may not be good, but damn if it isn't flashy, especially the team attacks. This is not stuff that Western developers would do with these characters, and it's great. While the final boss is not as over the top as other action game final bosses, fighting Shredder on a platform floating around New York City that is currently on fire is fucking awesome visually. Speaking of Shredder, remember how I mentioned that besides one instance, the secret bosses aren't really new bosses, but just one boss from one level being dumped into a different level? That's not the case with what I consider the only real secret boss, Super Shredder. Even if it is an extension of an existing character and fight, it is a whole new fight with a completely different moveset. He is also the only boss that is a good example of how the game mechanics work, and feels like a real, proper boss. You need to learn his moves, since he is very tough. He also has moves that work well against 4 players, and he doesn't just leave a lot of time to just wail on him, so you need to actually find openings and not just spam attacks and dodge once in a while. Why couldn't all the bosses be like this? And in my personal opinion, this is the best designed Super Shredder ever made. What does make it a little anticlimactic is that he doesn't have an epic theme to go along with him, but instead the victory music that plays when you beat a boss is playing, which sounds too upbeat for a fight like this. The final and weirdest positive about this game for me is that I just get hankerings to play this game. I honestly don't know why, but there are times where I think about replaying this game. It's odd and I can't really explain why, since the negatives definitely outweigh the positives, but I guess that's why it's a guilty pleasure. However, I never go through with it, and I usually get hankerings to play other games again instead, like Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, Bloodborne, and Devil May Cry 5, which are much better games that I would definitely rather play. I don't know if this game made enough or was received well enough to get a sequel, but if Activision and Platinum are willing, I would unironically love a sequel, as it would allow for more creative freedom and refinement to make an overall better product. Hopefully. Oh my god, could you imagine a Rise of the TMNT game? Utilizing the amazing animation? And maybe Platinum Games did develop it? Oh god, here comes the secret news!
Cowabunga! That's what I'm talking about! Yes! Woo-hoo-hoo! So epic!
I've seen the 2017 TMNT film, which was a film. I've also wasted money on seeing the Bay films. The Bay films. The potential for a crazy and well-playing Ninja Turtles game seems like it could be incredible. Well, if the 25-minute long unscripted video I did is anything I'm talking too fast. I get it varies gameplay so the player is not just doing the same thing over and over and over, but if you focus on the Morty, oh god, let me try that again. Stealth has never been a huge thing in TMNT games, but some games have implemented. God, I'm so bad at this. Activision is known to meddle in the development of games that they're publishing. While nothing official has come out, I have no doubt that Activision placed some major restrictions. I cannot read. Even if it is an extension of an existing character even if it is an extension of existing even if it is an extension of I can't say an existing.